In 2009, the heads of the UN agencies launched the Social Protection Floor Initiative as one of 9 UN joint initiatives to cope with the effects of the economic crisis. The Social Protection Floor is a rights-based approach with the core idea that no one should live without a certain income level and that everyone should at least be able to have access to basic social services to enhance decent work opportunities. It facilitates a comprehensive approach to social protection and promotes a whole government approach. The involvement of all line ministries, social partners, and civil society organizations is encouraged, with the UN providing joint cutting-edge advice in a coherent, system-wide way. In this regard, in Thailand, we, UN agencies, Royal Thai government, and other stakeholders have been collaborating within the SPF framework. We have all learned a lot, and we'd like to share our thoughts with you who are planning to implement SPF in your own countries.
The concept of the social protection floor was first introduced in Thailand in 2009, but I'd like to go back a little bit earlier than that to put it into context. It's hard to imagine now, but for decades social protection was regarded as a rather arcane subject, fit only for actuaries and not relevant to most people, particularly in the informal economy. And I think we'd forgotten what the vision of it was. This changed in an important way when the ILO had the World Commission on the Social Dimension of Globalization in 2004. And the World Commission made important references to the social protection floor. And understanding of that, I think, was slowly building at the time the global financial crisis hit. And that, of course, galvanized people into thinking a lot more about it. And we saw quite fast action. In April of 2009, the UN Chief Executives Board in New York agreed on a series of measures, UN system-wide, which included the social protection floor. In June of 2009, at the International Labour Conference, the Global Jobs Pact was adopted, also giving important emphasis on the social protection floor. And in 2009, in September, there was a meeting organised on social protection in Ayutthaya between the World Bank, the UN country team and the government. And I think the intention was to talk in a rather detailed way about some elements of social security and social protection. And I introduced at that meeting the concept of the social protection floor, and you could see that it got a lot of interest. And only a few months later than that, when the UN country team met to decide what its program would be, what its priorities would be for the coming 2 years, it was very easy to get people to agree that the social protection floor should be one of the main themes for the UN country team in Thailand. And immediately after that, a joint team on the social protection floor was established at the beginning of 2010. I saw the meeting in Ayutthaya as an important opportunity to, I guess, take forward some of my frustration over many years at not having anything to offer to most people. I think that not just the ILO, but the UN system as a whole had not been able to convince people of the importance of social protection for all people. And obviously the global financial crisis made it easier to convince people of this. You could see as soon as the idea was raised, as soon as the notion was raised, that this was something that would be important as a response to crisis, but also beyond that as a way of developing economies, avoiding people having to make wrong short-term choices that would later on reduce their capacity to build businesses. Then that caused a resonance, I would say, with people. There was also a great deal of concern at the time with the risk of social and political upheaval associated with the global financial crisis. And again, I think people could understand very easily the relevance of the social protection floor in helping to mitigate the risks of that social and political upheaval. And then finally, and it was perhaps the most difficult element, it was the time when people could begin to think about social protection as a human right. Now, actually, it had been recognized as a human right long before that, but I think the recognition in a practical sense of this had been lacking for a long time. And the global financial crisis really did a lot to make that possible.
Within the framework of the social protection floor, UN agencies have been working jointly for almost 2 years, collaborating together, using their comparative advantage.
In Thailand, we have established an SPF joint team under the UN partnership framework with the Royal Thai government. And from the UN side, it's led by ILO, but it also includes other UN agencies. So for example, UNESCO, WHO, UNICEF, UNFPA, UNDP, and UN Women.
The objective of the social protection team is that to develop a holistic and coherent vision on social protection in Thailand, so that to move progressively to the provision of universal and basic social protection to all.
The issue is that each UN agency has its own individual mandate and areas of expertise, and that can lead to somewhat of a fragmented approach. So by having a social protection floor, we're all on the same page. So any intervention that we make related to issues of social protection are guided by the principles of this basic social protection floor. What are the key things that we want to do that fit in with the Royal Thai government regarding social protection?
Working as one has been a mantra for the United Nations for a number of years now. And while we talk a lot about it, sometimes it's difficult to find actually how to do it. And it seems to me that the social protection floor is a very practical example of a way which really does help the United Nations to work together as one. I think that already in a number of other countries, work is going on across the UN agencies within UN country teams to work on the social protection floor, and I'm sure this will continue.
How the UN joint team working together is a very important aspect for the achievements made so far by the team. I think the individual agencies were working isolated before. In each of these agencies' mandate, with each of these agencies' mandate and technical expertise. But now, apart from sharing information, they are working together in terms of identify the needs from for the universal coverage in Thailand, and also identify what the UN country team could respond to the country needs. In my view, this is already a great achievement. They have also developed some joint activities under the UNPAF in the area of social protection. I think starting from the joint activities, they are going to develop the joint program. This is the next step. The joint program actually is doing exactly what we are supposed to do in terms of working as deliver as one.
The SPF framework contributed to have the line ministries, UN agencies, social partners, and CSOs work jointly on the extension of social protection within the UNPAF, following the principles of the SPF, which revealed to be relevant for the country.
ดังนั้นก็ลุกขึ้นมาแล้วก็ประกาศดังๆว่าต่อไปนี้นะในการจัดสวัสดิการทั้ง4เสาหลักนะคะทั้ง4เสาหลักเนี่ยจะให้ประสบความสำเร็จจริงๆเนี่ยจะต้องมีเสาหลักที่4ที่สำคัญคือความร่วมมือซึ่งวันนี้เนี่ยเราก็ได้รับความร่วมมือจากองค์การสหประชาชาตินะคะที่จัดเวทีเวิร์กช็อปขึ้นมาแล้วก็เชิญหน่วยงานที่เกี่ยวข้องทุกภาคส่วนนะคะวันนี้เนี่ยแม้กระทั่งสื่อก็เข้ามามีส่วนร่วมด้วยเพื่อให้เรามีการพูดคุยกันและลงความคิดเห็นแล้วก็ตกผลึกกันว่าเอาละการมีส่วนร่วมตรงนี้เราทำยังไงเพื่อนำไปสู่ implement ในเรื่องของการคุ้มครองทางสังคมให้ได้ค่ะ
So the way the government and the UN will be working together to achieve this social protection floor is that within the next United Nations partnership framework in Thailand, social protection has been identified as one of 6 key areas for close collaboration and work with the Royal Thai government. And within any middle-income country, the UN is asking itself where can it give the most value, and it makes sense to be doing things together. And here in Thailand, rather than aspiring just to achieve the floor that has been set, we really would like to go beyond that and provide a level of protection that gives higher level of benefits.
When we established a national committee, and we have agreed upon on priority setting using this SPF framework. Then they can work together because this is a new thing, no ownership now. Otherwise, you will have some kind of ownership, and people still have their own idea.
The UN will help the government to implement the social protection strategy in 4 main ways. The first one is to help guarantee that people are aware of and have access to the different schemes. In Thailand, sometimes social protection is viewed as a welfare, and it's seen as creating dependency. So the first thing is to work with the government on information programs to help make people aware of what is social protection and what are the different programs available. Secondly, the UN would like to work with the Thai government to guarantee that people remain above the national poverty line throughout their entire lives through social protection coverage. Thirdly, we'd like to collaborate with concerned institutions to ensure that workers in both the formal and the informal sectors of the economy and their families have higher levels of benefits, either through partially subsidized schemes or through making contributions. And the fourth is really to help provide international expertise and support to ensure the financial and institutional sustainability of any social protection scheme that is in place.
ตรงนี้เนี่ยมันก็เห็นว่าเราไม่โดดเดี่ยวเราจะมีคนที่มาช่วยกันเติมเต็มแล้วก็คิดว่าตรงนี้เนี่ยมันน่าจะดีขึ้นมากๆเพราะเนื่องจากองค์การสหประชาชาติก็รู้อยู่ว่าเป็นองค์การที่มันเป็นองค์การที่เชื่อถือได้และเป็นองค์การที่ระหว่างประเทศเลยนะคะก็สามารถที่จะระดมแล้วก็ประสานงานนะคะโดยภายใต้ของความร่วมมือขององค์กรแรงงานระหว่างประเทศ
The first one is that it really builds on existing schemes and structures. So it's not creating any parallel system. A second example is the SPF is flexible in approach but firm in outcome. And what we mean by that is that the country has the freedom to use whatever tools it feels it needs to reach its objective, but the outcome, which is social protection for all at all times, remains firm. A third example is that it fosters consensus building. And this is important not only in terms of identifying priorities, but more importantly for ensuring implementation. This is really important, and if you involve stakeholders then in the decision making, then they are more likely to be committed to the outcome and to following up to ensure that things are done. And a fourth example that I would give is that it helps to foster social cohesion by reducing inequalities. And in Thailand, the country is currently going through a delicate period of political transition. There have been cases of violence which we feel have been triggered or in some cases exacerbated by social and economic inequalities. So the social protection floor is a really important measure to help reduce these risks.
I think the acceptance of the social protection floor, and in fact the demand for it, is even stronger coming from the grassroots level than it has been from the UN level or the national government level. Because at the grassroots level people really get it. They know what it's about. It means jobs for them, it means cash transfers when they get sick, when they're without work, when the crops fail. It means health care access. All of these are very tangible things to them, and they may not have ever heard of the concept of a social protection floor, but they understand very well what it means to be vulnerable and what it means to be poor, and they can see how the different elements of the social protection floor respond to their needs as they express them.
We can see that many poor people or informal people in the informal sector, they still not have certain kind of social protection, especially for the income security. Although now we have, I think, a quite good benefit in kind for the healthcare for everybody, but we still a lot of problem when we think about the income security, especially for informal sector. And by this way, the SPF provides us very clear message to government, politicians, and also Thai people that we have to at least create certain floor for the income security for this group of people, and then it will let our society more cohesion.
The social protection floor is based on the notion that social protection is a human right. It fundamentally changes the idea of who will have protection. In the past, particularly in developing countries, you had people in the civil service, people in the formal sector, quite often a small formal sector, were members of contributory schemes with well-defined benefits that arose from those. And people who were not in the civil service or in the formal sector didn't expect to have anything. Now we have a situation where there will be a floor for all people, but we should understand that that is a floor. It's a floor that needs to be built on. Those who are able to, through their employment normally, able to contribute towards higher levels of benefits or an extended range of benefits will have that higher level extended range of benefits, and we hope that gradually countries will be able to add to that, so more and more people will be able to climb up the ladder of the social protection floor.
In my view, the preconditions for ensuring the facilitation and management of this social protection floor teamwork is that there should be two commitments. The first commitment is from the leading agency. There should be adequate resources in terms of human and financial resources. The ILO has assigned an associate expert in doing the daily work in terms of facilitation and management of the teamwork. And also the ILO has a program officer for Thailand who has been involved highly in the teamwork in terms of liaising with these national counterpartners. By means of leading agency, in my view, this agency should have the mandate and technical expertise to provide the vision and for the teamwork, and also to design the work of the team, and also to assist the implementation of all the activities and developed by the joint team.
At the regional and global level, we've seen the social protection floor being taken up, for example, in the G20. And the G20 has called, in fact, for the ILO to establish an observatory of social protection. So the joint team on the social protection floor in Thailand, I think, is one of the important ways in which we can contribute to that observatory. Contribute through the creation of data, through online forums that make more information available, through the development of human resources, and that's been a very important aspect of the social protection floor joint team in Thailand. So I see it contributing to that effort. I see it also contributing to the way in which the UN system can come together on issues which have been recognized for a long time to have some relevance to them, but which they found it difficult, I guess, to find really the common ground and a way to work together. And we see that happening, of course, within Thailand as part of the joint team on social protection law, but we also see that contributing to joint efforts within the UN system at the regional level.